Once you have finished it.
Okay, fine.
We're saving.
Okay, everyone, I'd like to call the Tuesday, March 24, 2026 City Council meeting to order. And before we start our item 3, I see we have 2 Girl Scouts here. Yeah, so would you like to, or at least you have 2, both? Okay, yeah, so just state your name and the badge that you're working on. Citizenship badge. Okay, great. Glad to have you at City Council today. Item 3, workshop, proposed revisions, boards, commissions, and committees. Review and discuss proposed updates to resolution number 2117, City Council policy on boards, commissions, and committees, City Code of Ordinances, Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 3, direction on potential amendments. And we have Linda Mendenhall, City Clerk.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, I'm here to walk you through the proposed revisions to the boards and commissions recruitment process. As we work through the most recent appointment cycle, we identified several areas for improvement or opportunities for improvement. The updates I'll be sharing today are designed to address those gaps, add some structure, and support a smoother, more transparent process moving forward. These recommendations are also informed by best practices and my experience with other municipalities. The presentation is intended to be like high-level view at this moment. We'll return at a future workshop to review the revisions you support and discuss how those changes will be incorporated into the governing documents. As we go through the presentation, I welcome your feedback. This is intended to be an interactive discussion. That's why we're meeting in this setting, which is a little less formal and better suited for conversation. Yep. I added a few slides since your draft, and what I want to do is I added some talking points so we can make some decisions. So when we reach the review and direction slide, I want your feedback. I want your direction, and we can discuss the proposed changes as we go through the presentation. And then I can make the appropriate updates on my notes so that I can make them for the revisions at the next workshop. All right. Let's get into it. All right, so currently the task force is appointed annually. Proposed, we want to keep that. For one of the things, it supports a fresh perspective each year, and so we want to keep that. Term period from October 1st to September 30th, we're recommending a term period from January 1st to December 31st. It just makes it easier for residents, and most boards are calendar year, and so we want to implement that. Term length, we have a varied amount of years. Some are 1 year, some are 2 years, some are 3 years. We're proposing a 2-year staggered term. Just makes it a little more consistent, a little less administrative burden. And then position numbers, there for some boards, but not all boards. And so we're recommending the position numbers for all boards. And to give you an example of what that would look like, we're going to use the Animal Advisory Board. And each one now has a position number. Position 1 will always be the veterinarian. Position 2 will always be the 501c3, and so on. It's going to make it easier for us to track appointments, reappointments, when terms expire, and I think it just give it a little more clarity when we go through the process. Okay. All right, so now we're at that review and direction. Before we go any further, I want to see how you support those proposed changes. Are you in favor of changing the term period to a calendar year?
Yeah.
Consensus? Okay.
Easy.
All right, that's easy. Remember that. Are we supportive of the term length to 2 years?
Yes.
Can I ask a question, Matt?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so we currently have a variety of terms. Do you have in your mind how we're gonna transition from all that to a 2-year term?
Yes, and we'll go through that. What we want to do is that'll be the next workshop. I'll talk to the board liaisons and so forth and kind of show what the plan would be and get their input.
I have a question.
Councilmember, we still have to go through this, yeah. Yeah,
Thank you.
lovely, yeah.
I'm looking at 2 years and because council transitioned to 3 years, it was based on, of course, having the experience and then having to go through a campaign. Of course, they don't do that, but is 2 years enough time to have experience to become to go into another term? So the question is 2 years is a term, and then you go another 2 years. Do y'all think that's enough time to gain experience? Do we need to look at 3 years or is 2
I
years?
think 2 years.
I like the 2 years.
Years is enough?
I wouldn't do too much longer than that.
We get the right people.
You can keep it yearly, like the whole intent.
I would never go yearly.
Alright.
Councilmember Butcher?
So the original intent for the yearly was just to review who's on the committee each year. And the general assumption is most people continue their tenure as long as they're doing a good job. And if not, it gives an automatic mechanism to say, look, if they're just not fulfilling it, then you have the option to obviously make changes if needed. So that would be the only downside of going to 2 years, but I know in some cases it became a headache of figuring all this stuff on the committees, right? Of who's who, are they due for another year, all that good stuff. It's trade-offs.
2 years. All right, that's great. Position number for all seats.
Yes.
Makes sense, easier to track. All right, that's good.
All right, so
Done.
now we're gonna. Okay, now we're gonna go to the recruitment process. This one's gonna take a little bit longer. Okay, this is what we have documented of how the process is supposed to be. This is how it's currently supposed to be. I don't know that it's actually truly been followed to the letter of the law because it wasn't this past process, but this is how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to have a meeting with the task force in July for direction. We're supposed to advertise for applications in August. First Friday in August, we're having a meeting with the task force for appointments, possible scheduling of interviews in September. Then the appointments at the same meeting, there's usually an executive session at the beginning of the meeting, and then there's appointments during the regular meeting. And then midterm appointments have happened throughout the year, okay? So what I'm recommending is, I keep doing this wrong. Okay, let's just go here. Now I did it. Okay. Proposed process. So what I'm recommending is in September, since we have determined that we want to go on the calendar year, so this makes it easy for me. September, we start advertising applications. I want to have a clear, standardized appointment timeline that is publicly communicated and consistently followed. This will increase transparency for residents and create a more predictable. So that we will always say, that'll even be on the website, applications are taken in September, you know, what the process is. And then in October, I'd like to host a meet and greet. So for all the people who applied in September, we would take those, we would invite them. This would give applicants an opportunity to connect, better understand expectations, what the different boards do, allowing the task force also to engage with applicants beyond what's on paper. What I saw was a bunch of people's names on paper, and you know, we would review the applications and see who we possibly would want to appoint. But let's just say, sometimes you don't know how they're going to interact. But if you meet them, then you can see, you know, how they're going to vibe with the rest of the group. I just think that that's a really good situation and can really open up people's eyes to what the board's about, and maybe they don't really want to do it. But I think that that can help us pick the best suited for the committees. And then with the meeting with the task force, we would have that. That's where the liaison, the task force, they would have a meeting, they would review the applications, they would think about what happened at the meet and greet, and then The liaisons would make their recommendations, but the task force would take this all in and then make their recommendations or schedule interviews. So October would be the month for interviews as well. Then we get to November. And the first meeting in November will be the session. What I want to do is separate the session from the action item. Because sometimes, you know, maybe you were thinking about this at the session, it sounded good, but you mulled it over
Yeah, man.
and you want to make a change.
Councilor Bonner.
I'm sorry, my ignorance, what's an E-session?
Oh, so the executive session, we usually discuss planning and zoning, ZBA. And so we talk about certain appointments at that session.
Right.
And then at the second meeting, we'll actually make those appointments. I think that that would, having it at the same meeting can sometimes.
Councilmember Watson.
Just to be clear, so in October, you're having a meet and greet with all applicants, liaison and task force. So that's the people on the task force making the appointments, not all of council.
Not all of council, but council can go. We can put that down. The council's invited to the task force as well.
Well,
Yeah, task
I was looking for clarity, so we
Oh.
don't, we don't all need to go.
Okay.
But so, if they all meet and then I guess the task force kind of makes up their mind. They have a meeting and then the task force will come to council for that first session with recommendations. Is that what that is?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Councilor Shingle.
One question, Linda, in October, in September, when you advertise, would you automatically advertise for all positions? Because sometime for some boards, maybe nobody's term limiting that time.
I want to advertise for all boards. I would like to even have the opportunity to apply at any time, but it seems like Better Impact doesn't allow for that. So that's why I want to have like the whole month of September, people can apply and they can apply for any board. We're going to take them all in and look. And if there isn't a possibility for the board that they're interested in, maybe there isn't a vacancy, but maybe they'd be interested in another board. You can kind of find these things out. We can let people know at the meet and greet. This is what we have open.
So you're not suggesting that people who are currently on the board have to reapply for their own position? Is
What
that
I'd like to do with that is that they've already filled out their application.
right?
They've already done that process. Let's just have them reaffirm that they want to be reappointed. And that would be fill out a paper, it'll go to DocuSign, so they can even sign it and check off. Just in case, let's just say they move and they're still in Sugar Land, we can update their information. And make sure they still live in Sugar Land. What if they moved? No, people can be tricky. And then in December, the first meeting would be for the people who were appointed in November. They would take their oath of office and have their ethics training. So they had to have all this before they start. And then at the second meeting, I'm proposing that we do a public recognition for all the people who've served. Maybe they've termed out or resigned. This gives them, it's like a meaningful closure to the service that they provided. And then midterm appointments. When one happens, I think it's appropriate not just to go automatically to the task force, but my department and the liaison for that board will talk about that vacancy, because if it occurs towards the end of the term and we're going to be doing appointments anyway, why go through the process of filling that vacancy? But now if it's at the beginning of, let's say, that term, but let's say it's Animal Advisory Board, if you lose one person, that's not going to cause too much of an issue. But let's say on some other boards where maybe you have attendance issues or you have a, quorum, it's very tight on your quorum, we may want to. And then if that's the case where we determine we do need to go out and fill that vacancy, we'll bring it to the task force. And hopefully we even have applications, because we want to keep those for a year, then maybe we can even pull from those applicants, or maybe the task force even has some people, this is next in line if someone were to leave. So those are, just something like that.
Well, that's the way we've typically done the midterm appointments. If it's early on in the appointment, and somebody has to resign due to health reasons, or they've moved or something like that, then the task force will go look at available, applications as they stay on file for a year. But then if it's later on, getting close to the time of the applications anyway, then we just let the vacancy ride unless, there's a reason not to do so. But I guess my question is, the term that they would start in January, but then you're having the first meeting in early December, which is a whole month before they would even start. And so it seems like if they've already got their first meeting, that's the first meeting, yeah, it's a month before.
So in December, they would get their oath of office and the necessary training and then start.
Councilmember
You mean
Jacobson,
the first meeting, first council meeting of the month?
The first council meeting in December is,
Yeah.
yes,
That's what you mean. You don't mean the
Yes.
first meeting of that.
not of the board. That's for the council. And so we would do that ceremonial oath at the first meeting in December. We would have the ethics training presented.
Hit the ground running in January.
let's go, yeah. Yeah, Councilmember Watley.
Okay, I'm looking at advertise for applications in September, and you just mentioned that we would open applications for everybody, for every position. I just want to be real transparent with everybody who applies, that there may not be openings, because I don't want people to apply thinking that they have a chance of getting in. If there are no openings, say Parks and Rec have no openings, and I apply for that, I'm like, there's no way I'm getting in. So I don't want anybody to get upset that there's no opening and they apply.
That's a good point. What we can do is on the website is put what vacancies are available. But they can still apply for anything.
Councilmember Fisher.
Yeah, to add to that point, and I think the intent at some point was to kind of stagger the people, because the term limits are gonna come up at some point, but to stagger the people that there's always going to be openings on these committees. That way it's not everybody all at once or nobody at the same time, just to create a balance.
But based on my experience, when people apply for a committee board and they don't get selected, most of the time, not all, but most of the time, they never apply again. So I do share Councilmember Watley's concern that I don't want people applying for positions that are not open, because typically, when someone is on the board, they're doing a good job, they meet attendance requirements and stuff, they are automatically reappointed unless they're term limited. So I do have concerns about people applying for positions that are not vacant.
We can limit it to the boards that are available. That's fine. If that's the consensus of the group.
I would like to limit to Councilmember Watley.
Because I think for full transparency to applicants, it's unfair to apply for positions that aren't even available.
I agree.
Yeah.
And it takes time to fill out the applications and do a really good job on that. So I don't want applicants to spend time. Yeah, give them false hope is a good way, and taking their time to apply for a vacancy that doesn't exist. I think that'd be very unfair to the residents to do that.
We all agree on this.
Before we go on, I just want to review the timeline without all the cute pictures, so you remember. Applications, October application review, meet and greet interviews, November appointments, December recognition and oath of office, January they start their term. Now, are we in favor of these changes? So let's talk about it. I mean, I know we've already kind of talked about it, but is there something you don't like about this? Do you like advertising in September?
Only for,
Probably ought that we just agree.
Yes. Like the open.
only for open position.
For the lines with the schools, it's good too, because then it gets people in the routine.
Do you like the meet and greet idea?
So you would open it up to all of council and then publicly post that then?
I would think we need to talk about if it's all a council or task force, because I don't think you need all of us there.
But I guess it would be the council task force would essentially be essentially expected, almost required to attend, and then it would be optional for the rest of council if they wanted to be.
It's our decision.
It'd be each council member's decision if they would like to do it, and it'd be publicly posted, so you'd have the option to do that if you'd like. So I guess that's what you're saying. Is Councilman Jacobson?
Yeah, I'm not sure that, I think it's really that important for, anyone more than the task force. I mean, if we're gonna do that and we have to start advertising, we might as well start advertising for every committee meeting and on all that. So I think that, I believe it's sufficient for just the task force.
Is the task force, Councilmember Bondicar?
Just a question, all these meetings we're talking about are gonna be publicly noticed, right? They'll be noticed?
No.
Okay, all right, never
Not the
mind.
not the meeting of the task force.
Okay, and I would agree with what you guys said.
Okay, so we just want to limit the meet and greet just to the task force.
Fine.
The other part, the application review and the interviews, that already currently happens, so I don't see that you would not support that, are we?
Yeah.
Now, the November appointments, are you in favor of splitting the decision from the E-session? Everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
When we say splitting it, meaning the ones that we discussed in executive session versus the ones that we do not?
Well, so normally we do the E-session and then we immediately go out of E-session and we vote on it at that council meeting. So this way we would have the executive session for the boards that you can discuss under executive session, and then the appointments would be a follow-up meetings. Yeah, that's the point.
Either way.
Yeah, but
Makes sense, yeah.
And then December would be the oath of office and training and recognition of outgoing members. Okay.
Is that cake?
Cake, we should have cake.
Councilor Betcher?
I think the one thing that we haven't really discussed is how long the application stays open. I mean, I see the deadlines here, but it looks like we started in September and then it's gonna end what, in October sometime? Or is it just September?
So the application would be in September and then all of the fun stuff in October. So the meet and greet, possible interviews, meeting with the task force. So we can have a 2-week window in September. For the application process, or we can even do the whole month of September.
Some feedback is I know with all the changes and turnover that we had to open and close some of the application windows, which became a lot to deal with. So I'm trying to think if there's an easy way for us to do this to kind of streamline the process. If we kept the applications open, like I know we discussed whether there was an actual position to apply to, but even if there wasn't, if someone just wanted to put their application in the system as a holding pattern to wait until something opens up, there might be some benefit in that, especially with some of the turnover that we have had. I think we need to figure out the best process to do that if we're gonna review this every, half a year, every year, or how do we deal with those unannounced, vacancies?
Well, the unannounced vacancies are handled by the midterm appointments that we discussed earlier, and unless they're out near the end of the.
Have alternatives?
On some of the boards, we do have alternatives, ZBA, some of those boards, we do have alternatives, ethics, Councilor Jacobs?
yeah, I'm with you on this. I think that we should probably keep it open for the whole month. One of the things that never really works in practice, though, is for people to wait for us to say, oh, look, we have an opening and we'll call you if there's an opening. That never works. I think that people need to apply or refresh their application. I mean, you can refresh, if you have an application and you could refresh it. But I like the whole, like you're saying, the whole month, but I don't think we should give anybody hope that we're gonna somehow pull their application and call them back. We have to advertise and say, well, you need.
Whole month.
For a single, yeah.
So I would also support.
So we want to have the applications open for the entire month, September 1st through September 30th then?
That's what
Okay,
I.
we can do that. And then applications, are valid and on file, good for one entire year. But then after that, they sort of expire because some situations may have
Yes.
changed or their availability, their schedule, or a lot of things could change. So people after 1 year, then they apply if there's a new.
Yep.
Okay, so we're good with all of that. Okay, so, next. So, term limits, let's talk about term limits. Term limits currently aren't really enforced for all boards or haven't been enforced for all boards. So we're proposing to enforce term limits and that they're consistently enforced unless otherwise directed by council. This just promotes fairness and encourages fresh perspectives, aligns with best practices. The current process, members don't acknowledge in writing terms of limits and attendance requirements. That's part of the problem we've had previously. Some boards didn't realize that there were firm limits that so this, we are recommending that they do sign something that acknowledges that there are term limits and attendance requirements and do this at the oath of office. But we would also talk about the meet and greet, but it's good to always bring it up. And then the current process is all members are appointed with a term. I'm proposing that we designate certain positions as indefinite, such as staff members. this just reflects the functional nature of their position, and it just reduces unnecessary administrative action. And so this is what it would look like. We have a perfect example. The Animal Advisory Board has 2 staff members on the board, and we shouldn't have to import them every year, every 2 years, or anything like that, because we know that they're always going to be on the commission. These 2 officers will always be on this because it's required. So minimizing the number of times it goes before council, I think it's just a good practice, and it's the functional nature of the job.
Without the shelter employee changes, though, then we would need to go back to council.
Right, exactly. And so then when we appoint them, we're gonna appoint them for indefinite term until they leave or, win the lottery.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Yeah, there are some positions that are highly technical, for instance, P and Z. And chairmanship of P and Z, for instance, sometimes continuity is more important than turnover. Is it possible, is there a way for certain boards or commissions where we would say, we could renew them indefinitely if we wanted to? Does anybody think that's a good idea?
I was actually thinking,
Personally, I think this would then be controversial because to some you would say indefinite and some others not. On what basis?
so I was thinking the same thing, but a little different spin on it. I don't like having a hard and fast rule, your term limit, at the end of your term, you're gone. We need to have some mechanism in there that says there are extenuating circumstances. If that happens, then we have the ability to reappoint or do something like that. I don't like having that hard and fast rule that says your term's up, you're gone, regardless of the circumstances. I think there needs to be some mechanism when extenuating circumstances happen. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to word it, but that's my thought.
Serve the right to extend.
But I think to Sanjay's point, unless we have very clear guidelines on when that can be used, then we open ourselves up to controversy. So
And one of the issues we had was with P and Z, we had a chair and vice chair that were on there for a really, really long time. So then we enacted a resolution back in 2021 that we would have the term limits unless there were extenuating circumstances. But one example of extenuating circumstances is BSC, because we can hardly beg enough people to get on that, and it maybe meets once a year and almost never has business, except we did have something recently. I'll go to you. So is there someone over here with compassion? I'll go to you.
Yeah, so my point on that was that, because if we keep that option, then we always run into that problem that we have to make exception. And here we are talking of 4 2-year terms, so 8 years. So we do have time to plan out for transition. 4 2-year terms, so total of 8 years. So we do have time to plan out for succession and prepare somebody else.
What I'd like to say is, we're gonna talk about terms in just a moment. Okay, and the 8 years and so forth.
Councilor Jacobson, did you have a?
I think the next slide.
Okay, we'll wait till she.
Okay, so what I'd like to know is if you are in favor of these 2, the acknowledgement of terms and attendance, and that some receive. Oh, let's go back.
I would say on the first one, yes. On the second one, I think we need guidelines.
Are those only
It's not-
staff
yeah.
positions that were indefinite? So not that always.
Staff positions.
Maybe you should just say staff this.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Staff positions.
Because one thing, planning and zoning is the #1 most sought after board of all by far. And everybody, so many people want to be on that. So that one, we have tried to enforce term limits, but like I said, BSC, we're trying to beg people to get on that. So that one, and it needs some certain experience for that. So we've always been a little lenient on BSC because it's so hard to that board really ever meet or have any, business matters to attend to.
Well, I'm gonna give you some homework.
Homework.
And we're talking about something that, this is part of your homework. Currently, board members can serve up to 8 years, and in some instances, 9 years, if they've been appointed midterm or if council determines it's necessary. Sometimes some board members have even served longer because they didn't know that there were term limits. The committees weren't aware of that. But the question is, should there be term limits should it be same for all boards? Or should there be some flexibility? And so that's what I want you to think about. Think about some of these boards that have received high interest, parks, animal, where shorter term limits would be more beneficial. You'd get more people to be able to participate. Now, for the other ones that are more difficult to fill, have lower interest, but are highly skilled, you need to be skilled to be on these. Maybe those need to be a little bit longer, you know, continuity and stability. So maybe you would think about that. I know I preach consistency, and that's one of the things. This is not the area where I would be so hard fast that it needs to be this way, because I can see, okay, if we have 2-year term limits, somebody be on an animal advisory board for 8 years, and there's all these people wanting to be on it, and you have to wait 8 years, you know, until a spot comes open, maybe that's not appropriate. Maybe it should be a shorter length of time. Maybe they term out after 2 terms. That's 4 years. I personally think that's appropriate, but it's really up to you and what you think. So I want you really to think about that. Some lend more towards 8 years because of those expertise. So I want you to think about that.
Now,
Right now, we have a
If you like the
Councilmember
8 years,
Blankenhorn?
it's okay.
right now we have a hodgepodge. It's varied by board. Okay.
now SL4B, for example, is 3 2-year terms. But now P and Z, I don't recommend going any shorter than, I mean, 4 2-year terms, because you do have a little expertise that's important. So I don't recommend shortening that at all. Yeah, Councilmember Watkins.
You know, I just want to say this, and this may or may not apply to all boards. This is not a merry-go-round where everybody gets a free turn. And we need to stop being here on this board because so-and-so wants a turn, so-and-so wants a turn, so it's your turn. We need to look at these boards as the value they bring to our community. So P and Z or Parks and Rec, the people on those boards need to be a myriad of different values, different skills, different ideas that they bring. On P and Z, we need somebody from this area, maybe a realtor, maybe an architect, maybe an engineer. We can't put people on there just because it's their turn. We have to look at these boards as fulfilling an overall aspect to make sure our city's impacted the correct way. So if we keep somebody on longer because we need an architect there longer, we might do that. It's not about the term limit as much as it is the value they bring to the board. So we need to keep our minds open on how we're filling these boards and why. It's not just a big old merry-go-round of putting people on. Now, I'm not as familiar with every board as I probably should be, but some may not make as big a difference as far as skill at the table. Maybe everybody should get a turn, but that's just my thought.
Councilmember Jacobson.
You just made an argument for no term limits for council members.
No, no. We have term limits, we're keeping that. But I just hope that when we look at this, we look at the reason we have these boards and the reason we need somebody from every area with different experience, different skills, and they have a term limit for sure. But it's not about my turn, I get to serve.
I know on P and Z, we do make an effort to make sure people represent different disciplines. And on the Parks Board, there's actually some specific guidance asking for us to consider, if possible, people with these different type of backgrounds. And those are the main two. And of course, on animal, there are some very specific terms, some by state law. The Councilmember Single. Oh, I'm sorry.
A different variety of backgrounds, but what about spreading them around the different districts?
Well, that is part of the resolution that was passed. We're supposed to, where possible, we're supposed to make sure we have representation from the various districts, and that's representative of the community with respect to other criteria as well. So yeah, geographic diversity is one of the components in that. Councilmember Single.
So my question is the homework you want, we can give you feedback as an email that for which board, what term limit do we recommend?
So when we come back to the next workshop, we'll talk about it. And it's okay if you say 8 years is appropriate. I just want to put that out there for you to think about, because there is high level interest in.
Can you just provide us a table or something?
Yes, we'll do a table.
We'll give you feedback.
I was gonna make the
Betcha.
same comment about a table.
Okay, you got, that was, okay. Yeah, okay. Any other questions?
Okay. That's it. Any questions?
Applaud your efforts here. This is something needs to be done. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, next steps, I want to let you know, well, of course, I've been speaking about this workshop. And so what we're gonna do is I'm taking back all the input that you provided me, and I'm going to update the governing documents to see how they would work in practice, basically. And in some situations, we'll have transition periods, and so I'll propose how we would handle those transition periods. And after that, then we'll go to council with an updated documents and for approval. I just hope that, you know, what we're really trying to do here is create a consistent and transparent and efficient process. And for everyone involved, and I appreciate your feedback today and look forward to bringing back a refined version for you. And I'll also get you that table so that you can provide your input.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good job, thanks.
Oh, yeah, so having no further business, may I get a motion to it? What's second?
Make a motion.
Wait, okay, just wait, just a second, so what's that?
Attorney.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to clarify that your homework is due at the next workshop, that you're not going to be emailing it separately, since you're going to all bring it to the workshop, so let's not.
Bring it to the workshop, yes.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
clarification.
Yes.
That just spoils sport.
Okay, so now, having no further business, may I get a motion?
Make a motion.
Okay, so, determined by Sunday.
All right, there's cake in the room.
When's your birthday?
Huh?
Your birthday?
19.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yes.
That's my thoughts on it.
We'll go back and have some cake, everybody.